Thank you very much also on our part. Thank you for the invitation, for the great honor, having the possibility to speak in this on this conference. And it's not that easy to talk after Mr. Sinai, but we are doing our best, and I think we will underpin some elements that we found and experienced. So let me share my screen. I hope you see the slides and you understand what I'm saying. Well, we are 5 people, but that's only part of the work group. But we were honored to share our ideas with a short impulse presentation. We split it up in 2 parts. Sophie and me are going to look at 4 different points that are important to us when we think of development. And then Hannah and Daniela are going to share 3 different aspects of where to go in the future and what our vision is. And in that first part, we had the question, what do we think of when we think of development? And from our perspective, from young people in Germany that are actively participating in the church and society and do a voluntary year in the Global South. The first aspect directly aims at this. North-South voluntary services for us are an expression of global injustice. We found that sometimes really painfully, but because we benefited from that. But doing something like that on a voluntary basis is something that is refused to young people in other parts of the world, which is of course due to structures that were installed that makes it easy for us but not for others in this world. So we had great programs supporting these North-South exchanges, and still I can see some asymmetry from when it comes to payments or how you are supported to do something like that on a voluntary basis. And we do that, and we had great financial support. So for us, this expression of global injustice is always part of this project. And the question that came up, and which we really considered in a critical way, was, should we really support that, or do we support that just by doing this and reproduce it? But then in reflection, we see that we have benefited from that also because of the position that we are in now, because now we can get political. That takes us to the question of how can there be an awareness for global connections without making a voluntary exchange to the Global South. And there are also young people in Germany that do not have the privilege in Germany to see and feel these connections. And the moment also young people in Germany are thinking differently, backwards thinking, so to speak, in Germany, and that is the problem. So the second thing is our imperial way of life and global justice exclude each other. So change mostly has to take place in the global north, well, the thought north. So the question is, so do we live beyond what we need? Is this economic system really based on structures of exploitation. So do we create our wealth on the shoulders of other people, and that cannot be handled with or this is something that we saw when we came back to Germany, that this does not coincide with our imperial way of life. So these changing our individual lifestyle is one thing, but also I'm talking about structural changes, political changes in a broader sense than just talking about the individual lifestyle and the behavior of the consumers. So another thing that would be reasonable to talk about Germany as a developing country in this respect. So then Sophie is going to join us with the third point. So let me continue with the next point. Global learning is a necessity. We also need to be active, however, to fight structural problems with very concrete political commitment. So it's important to know about your privileges, to know in what kind of world we are living in, what impact our activities, our way of life has on others. And it's also important not to remain on that level, not only thinking and talking about it and being aware of it, but even going that next step to become active, also politically active, and to really tackle these structural problems. And at that point, the question came up whether this should be called development work in order or tackling these problems. And the fourth point we had is that the Christian churches are global players. They could make use of their international network even more in order to overcome paternalistic and Eurocentric development cooperation. So this is something we need to do. So seeing the Christian churches as a global player shows how large their potential is, because they have something that is unifying all over this planet, going beyond the borders between countries. And there is a lot of potential. A lot of things are going on already. A lot of people are very active, but we are of the opinion that even more has to happen in this respect in order to overcome that Eurocentric paternal worldview. And the question is, isn't that the mission of a church, a mission that they should take very serious? And that was the end of our second part. So now let's pass on to my co-student. I don't know whether you can see me. Yes. Hello. Development is a huge word and is very abstract. So for us, it's always connected to thoughts of the future. How could it be? What is my utopia? And we thought of different scenarios which we would like to read out.
The sun sends its last rays into my flat, and I turn on television. News time. What's happening in the world? What's going on? My living room shall become big, open to stories, incidents, and opinions from around the world. So far away shall become near, close and tangible. A report on a summit meeting is shown. Summit. Actually, wrong word, because summits are everyone. The Environment Minister of Nepal introduces herself and her Agenda 2070. She draws attention to the situation in the highlands. A storm has destroyed many plantations, and there is a need to react. After her speech, to which politicians from all over the world listened attentively, there was a discussion about how various nations that benefit from agriculture in this area can get involved. There's a lively dialogue with experts in the area, and they explain the situation to those present. The topic is difficult, but they are being listened to. In the end, all the nations involved adopted a plan to respond appropriately to the situation. However, the representatives of the responsible farmers have the final say. They know the situation. They have the best idea of a possible solution. And everyone present is aware of that. Half of them are women, which is a prerequisite for such a meeting to take place at all. Nepal. I don't know this country. It seems so far away. But today, I was allowed to have it in my living room. Today, people took the time to tell me something about the situation in the highlands. In the beginning, there was a problem. Then came a dialogue, followed by a solution. Politics is difficult, I think to myself, but doable. As I turn off the TV, I look forward to the next day. Who will be the guest tomorrow? Who can I listen to tomorrow? Maybe not today, but tomorrow.
Ich stehe auf, putze Zähne.
I get up, brush my teeth, get dressed. Sun in the window. First I go outside, see the marketplace and marvel. Stand still. The person at the stall is talking animatedly. The old woman doesn't seem to hear well. Someone is standing back there on the left, licking an ice cream. Name S, probably 7 years old, female. Next to the person, someone saunters into the square. Name X, 24, heterosexual. The categories appear in my head. He meets another person, probably about 62 years old, retiring soon, but seems much younger. A wedding ring on his finger. Married then. To whom, I wonder? Woman, man, something? What? Another category in my head. Always there. I see, I categorize. Categorize into what? Black, white, rich, poor, fat, thin, stupid, smart, pretty, ugly, European, American. I walk on, from the fountain to the vegetable store. The old woman has bought asparagus. Anyway, I think that the man from the vegetable store has pretty much categorized the older woman directly as well. And despite the category, is now standing there with a kilo of asparagus less. And the old woman is just disappearing around the corner, heavier by a kilo of asparagus. In the end, I saw her smile. It's funny. Who knows what they thought about each other at the first moment? Initial hurdles that are perhaps in the current nature of man, if you want to put it that way. Initial hurdles that nevertheless allow the encounter to take place. Categories that do not have to be hurdles. Encounters that can happen despite and with everything. Asparagus that moves from one hand to the other. Communication that happens, interaction that is lived. Encounter that takes place at eye level. With that, I move on, across the marketplace, into the day, into the future, full of hope for encounter. Encounter at eye level. on the big level and on small level. I see the people in the marketplace. The thoughts in my head become louder than the categories that want to pop up. On the sun, in the sky, there's the sun. Maybe not today, but tomorrow.
Wir schreiben das Jahr 2030.
It's 2030.
Mit einer Tasse Tee mache ich es mir an meinem
With a cup of tea in my hand, I make myself comfortable at my dining table and open the newspaper. I read about a new partnership between my former university and a university in Uganda. The headline makes me curious. As I read the article, I think how glad I am that international relations have developed like this in recent years. We have finally learned that development cooperation of an economic nature perpetuates power relations whose influence bring us all, globally speaking, closer to each other. We now know that dialogue and exchange at eye level enable us to create a sustainable global camaraderie. We've also learned that our privileges are primarily based on a system that promotes exploitation and poverty elsewhere in the world. We have realized that we can learn from each other and that we in the global north do not always need to be lecturing, but much more often listening and learning. Unfortunately, there's still reasons for people to leave their home in many countries, but we have noticed that we are part of the reason for them to flee and that we need a global strategy to stop this. We have achieved many things so that wars are will no longer be exacerbated. And we have managed to get legal bans on speculation with food and land theft at home and abroad. Furthermore, we've understood that taking in refugees is necessary and nothing other than our duty to offer protection. Slowly, I end up back at my dining table and look at the window. On the street outside my window, and the neighbor's girl walks by and waves at me. Smiling, I wave back and sip my now cool tea. I'm glad that we have learned so much. Maybe not today, but tomorrow.
Yeah.
So we listened to 3 utopias that I hope weren't just nice to listen to, but also something to think about. Imagine if that would actually be the case. Maybe not today, but tomorrow. I can decide what will be done. So can you. Thank you for listening to us. We'd like to thank all of you, and we wish you a very a lovely conference.